G'day there everyone, Daniel Anderson here. Welcome to this SharePoint workshop where we are going to learn how to create better user experiences inside of SharePoint. But what are we really going to get out of this? Well, we're going to learn the core concepts of SharePoint information architecture. So things like content types, site columns, and metadata, and how we can use those effectively in your SharePoint site. We're going to learn how to dynamically display content on SharePoint pages, specifically using the highlighted content web part. And we're going to be able to learn and implement categorization and this concept of creating once and being able to display that content anywhere. We're also going to learn how we can use library views to make content easy to find for the people that are coming to your site. How to create dashboards, a really good way to help improve that user experience and the user journey. So again, from a user experience point of view, making it easy for the people coming to your site to navigate and find what they are looking for. Now, first, let's start with the scenario, the problem, or the outcome. What are we trying to achieve here? Now, this can be taken and implemented and reused across different types of scenarios. But in this workshop, we're going to focus on you being a HR manager that's responsible for creating a better onboarding experience for new employees. You want a single location for new employees, so where they can go to access all the resources and things required for each stage of the onboarding process. You don't want to have to edit pages and update things every time new content comes in, or some new processes or some new forms or some new content needs to be added to each stage. And you want to be able to segment and categorize content regardless of the type of content that it is. So if we think of this onboarding process, we might have different forms and processes and policies and resources and tools that are part of our sequencing or our stages of onboarding. Now, the solution, what are we actually going to create here and build? We're going to create a SharePoint site collection for this particular process. We're going to create site columns to help us with our onboarding and categorization of our onboarding stages. We're going to create content types for the different types of content that we have in play throughout our onboarding process, and create our stage home pages or landing pages that is going to aggregate our content and display it in a way that is going to be nice and easy for our end users to follow. We're going to use and configure one of the Swiss Army knives of web parts in SharePoint, and that is the highlighted content web part. And we're going to use that across our pages to dynamically display the content that we want to display on our landing pages. So without further ado, let's get stuck into it. And what you'll see is that it really isn't as difficult as you may think to create these experiences. Let's go. Okay, let's take the first step and create our site collection and see what that gives us. Now, this process is going to vary depending on what is available in your tenant. We can see here that I'm on the SharePoint start page, and I'm going to start from there in this particular tenant. So I'm on the SharePoint start page. I'm going to click Create Site. So depending on the process in your organization will determine what this looks like. Now, I'm going to choose a communication site for this scenario because it's not a place that we're going to be going to do some work. It's actually going to be a place where we're communicating out to a broader audience and making resources and content available to that particular audience. So I'm going to choose communication site, and I'm just going to create a standard communication site for this process. I'm going to use that blank template. I'm going to give this site a name. So let's call this employee onboarding as the site name. It'll generate the URL for us. We could change this if we want to as well. We can give it a description. I'm just going to click next. Sensitivity in this tenant, I'm not going to set this to anything. I'm going to keep it as English, and that is going to create our SharePoint communication site for our onboarding process. Now, when we create a SharePoint site, regardless of the type, it comes with a few things. Okay, so we can see here that we automatically get our landing page. Because it's a comm site, we've got a big hero web part here. We've got some web parts that have automatically and by default been added to the page. Now we've got our global navigation. Now this is the site navigation for this employee onboarding site. Top right hand corner, we've got our settings icon. And if we go to site contents, that'll give us an overview of what's been provisioned when we create an actual site. You can see that we've got some a document library, we've got events, we've got site pages. So by default, we always get a documents library, and any page or news article that we create is automatically and added to our site pages library. So we've got our document library and we've got our site pages library. They're the two libraries that we're going to be working out of in this scenario. Our documents are going to be stored in the document library, and our pages obviously in our pages library. So if I jump back onto the home page, that's where we're at. We've created our site collection. Now let's create the other components. All right, so let's now set up two site columns. Now, the reason we're using site columns here is that we can then create a column for this site and reuse that site column across any document library or any list, even the site pages library, without having to recreate the column. And it gives us a standardized approach, not only to the columns, but also the values in those columns as well. So it gives us a little bit more standardization, data integrity, and just makes things easier for us to manage. So the first column that we're going to create is for our onboarding stages. So I'm going to go to the site settings. So top right hand corner, I'll then go to site information, and I'll go to view all site settings. Now this is where under Web Designer Galleries, we've got site columns and we've got content types. So I'm going to jump into site columns here, and I am going to create a new column. I'm going to call this onboarding stage as the column name. I'm going to choose this to be of the choice type. And you can see down here that we can create a new group here because we're going to create two columns here. We might want to create additional columns. We want to group them together so it's easier for us to find. So I'm going to say onboarding columns. All right, so we'll give this a name called onboarding columns. And I'm going to paste in, I'm going to pop in our different stages for our onboarding. So we've got 90 days, we've got first month, we've got first week, we've got first day, and we've also got another one called pre-boarding. All right, so we've got our different stages. I'll just grab pre-boarding and we'll paste that in there. We'll present them as drop downs. We won't have a default value, and then we'll click OK. So that's now created our first site column. All right, the second site column that we're going to use is for our onboarding document type. All right, so we're going to use, again, we're going to use a choice column, and let's just call this let's call this document type. All right, so we'll just keep it nice and simple. We'll call this document type. Again, I'm going to use choice, but this time I'm not going to create a new group. I'm going to add this to the group that we just created before, and I'm going to add a few document types in here. So we're going to have templates. We're going to have policies, and it's a document type, so it's a policy, not policies. We'll go a guide. We'll also have a form. All right, so we'll go form. So we'll go those three. So we'll go template, policy, guide, and form. We're not going to have a default value. We'll click OK. So now that we've got two of our site columns created, we can now use those on our libraries. So if I go to my documents library, and we can see that we've got some default SharePoint system metadata that's already added to our library. But what I can do is I can add those site columns now to this library. So I'm going to go to library settings. I'm going to go to more library settings. Now, part of this settings page is we've got content types and we've got columns. So in this column section here, I've got an option to add from existing site columns. I'm going to go to our onboarding columns, and you can see there's our two columns that we've just created. I'm going to move that across, and I'm going to click OK. So now we've got those columns available to us in our library. Now I'm just going to jump into document type here. I'm going to pop a space in this name like that, and I'm going to click OK. All right. So now if I go back to my documents now, and let's upload a few documents. All right. So now if I grab some documents and I drag them across and upload them. Now, because we don't have a default value, they're not going to be set. So we actually need to go in and set the document type in the onboarding stage. Now, what I'm going to do first is I'm just going to hide these system ones, and I'll leave our custom ones. So we've got our document type and our onboarding stage. Now, there's a couple of different ways that we can set this metadata. If we want to do it in bulk, a good way to do that is edit in grid view. And I can say, this is a template, this is a policy, this is a guide, this is a form. We'll do the same thing. So we'll go template, we'll go policy, and we'll go form. And then we can do our onboarding stage. So we've got these three that are our first day. We might have these ones that are these two that are our first week. We've got our first month, and then we've got our first 90 days. All right. So I'm just going to now exit this grid view. Now we might want to add a little bit more visual appeal here. So what we can do is we can edit this column. And because this is a choice column, we can do a little bit of color coding here. So you can see templates. Let's pop these as red. We'll go red, orange, we'll go green, and we'll go blue. All right, so we'll now hit save. You can see that these will change to pills. We've got onboarding stage. Let's do the same thing. So let's edit this onboarding stage. We'll go pre-boarding. Let's go green. We'll go a few different colors here. We'll go a lighter purple, and then we might go a gray. All right, so we'll hit save. You can see that we're starting to build out our library. We've got our documents. We've got our 2 site columns now. Now, because they're site columns, if I'm just going to jump to give you an example, is I can now add that column to this pages library as well. So remembering our pages and our news and those type of things get created in the pages library, but this is just in essence is a document library, right? It just stores pages. So if I go to not view all site settings, I'll go to pages and I want to go to library settings. All right, so I'll go to library settings, and then I get the same experience here. And rather than having to recreate these columns now and the values, what I can do is under columns, I can do the same thing. Add from existing site columns, and then I can choose the same thing. So onboarding columns, and I could, if I wanted to, move those across and add those columns to this library as well. Okay, so the last example and the benefit of these is I'm going to create a new document library, and I'm going to call this employee handbook. So I'm going to go blank library. I'll go employee handbook as the name of the library, and I'll hit create. Okay, because then what we can do is without recreating, this is a brand new document library. I can go into library settings, more library settings, and then in this library, I can also add from existing site columns. I can then also add these 2 values, document type and onboarding stage. Now, I don't want a document type in this library though. I only want the stage, because this is going to only be used for the employee handbook. So I don't want that document type. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to add the onboarding stage, because that will allow us to then create, when we create our page, to then specifically target this document library for a stage and the section of that particular handbook. All right, so now I've got 2 libraries. So if I jump back into employee handbook, what I do want to do though is I just want to show and hide columns, and we'll finish setting this up, and I'll just turn modified by, and I'll hit apply, and then that is now set as well. So I've got 2 document libraries. I've got my documents, which has got the 2 site columns added to it, which is our document type and our onboarding stage. And I've also got that employee handbook document library that has just got that single column on it, and that is the onboarding stage, because we're going to create different sections of our employee handbook. All right, so now let's go ahead and start creating our landing pages. And the first page that we are going to create is going to be a page for our first day. So I'm on the home page of our onboarding site. I'm going to click new, and I'm going to click new page. I'm just going to select our blank page template, And I'm going to, first of all, we're going to give this a name. All right, so we'll give this a title. We'll go welcome to our first day. All right, let's just pick an image as well. So actually I'm going to change from, I'll just go image and title. Welcome to your first day. Let's choose an image and we'll go stock images, and let's just pick one that is, looks nice. There we go. And we'll just add that as our background. So there's the title of our page. Now, we might want to add a little bit of introductory text and things like that, maybe an outline of what the first day looks like as an example. So let's craft an engaging page. So I'm going to add a section, but I'm going to add a vertical section. Now, in this vertical section, I might want to have the outline of what the first day looks like. So I've got here, I'm going to add my text web part. I'm going to paste in the outline of the first day. All right, let's just do a little bit of formatting here. We'll say, let's pop these to a H3. Actually, that's a bit big. Let's go H4. We'll go H4 for this one. We'll reduce the size of this text here to 16. We'll delete this space. We'll delete this one. We'll delete that one. And we'll also just go and change this to 16. Now, I don't think I want any of that. We'll keep that. We'll keep it like that. All right. So that looks okay. Now, what we might also want to do is we might want to add a contact for our first day. So when somebody arrives on this page, let's go your first day contact person. All right, so it might be the HR manager or somebody like that. So I'm just going to pop in that particular person, and we've got that section on the right-hand side created. Now, we might also then want to have maybe a little bit of an intro text on the page here. All right, so let's go and pop in. I'll just grab some text. We'll just grab some introductory text here. I'm just going to reduce the size. We're going to go to H3s for these. And now we've got the basis or the concept of a page or the structure. We're starting to build this out. Now I'm just going to hit publish, and let's have a look at what that looks like in real view. So we can see that we've got a title, we've got our introductory text, welcome to your first day, and we've got our vertical section on the right-hand side, but it kind of all blends in together. So let's do a little bit of the design here. So section, I'm going to go to the properties of this section. I'm just going to add a colored background. All right. So what we can do with our sections, break them up into with these section IDs or these section backgrounds. We can also, if we wanted to, add a background or upload our own background image for this section as well. All right. So we'll leave it as that for now. Now let's create and add our content. So we've got our document library. And if I jump back over, just remembering what we did in a previous lesson, we've got our document library, we've got our document types, and we've got our onboarding stage. So on our onboarding, we're creating a landing page here for the first day. So specifically, we're looking at our documents that have been tagged with first day. So the first web part the web part that I'm going to pop on this section in this section is I'm going to look for the highlighted content web part. Now, every web part has its own set of properties, and you can see on the right-hand side here that I'm in the highlighted content web part properties pane. Now, we've got a lot of different options here. This is why this is a really powerful web part. So we can filter and dynamically display the content that we want. So we've got this first section called content. We've got different options here for our source. So the source that we want to choose, I'm going to narrow this down to a document library on this site. I'm going to choose the document library. All right, so that's the default one that we've already set up. I'm going to leave the document type as any, but we could also then go down to the particular type or format or type of document, whether it's Word, Excel, PowerPoint, that type of file format as well. But I'm going to choose any because we might have different types, okay? Now, where it becomes interesting is in this filter and sort section. So in this filter, we've got a few different options. Title includes recently added, recently changed, created by, modified by, but look at this one, column name. So in our column name, remembering we had our onboarding stage. So if I start typing in onboarding, I'm going to narrow what we've got available, and you can see that I've got onboarding stage. So I want to display documents that equal the onboarding stage of first day. Okay, so now I've got 3 documents. If I go back to my library, we can see that I've got 1, 2, 3 documents. But still, we don't really have any way of knowing what type of document these are. All right, so let's go back into here. So I've got first day, first day, first day. I've got guides and I've got policies. So let's tackle policies. So there might be a set of policies that we want to be read on our first day. So I'm going to first of all, I'm going to put a title of this web part. So I'm going to write policies to read on your first day. All right. Now I can add another filter here to say, again, column name, and I'm going to say, start typing in document type. Okay, that's going to narrow the fields down, because what you'll see in our columns, you can see that we've got a lot of different columns that we can use here. All right, so what I'm going to say is I'm going to say document there, and I'm going to choose document type, which is the one that we've created. So I'm going to go document type equals policy, and that will then give us that single policy. But if we had multiple policies, then they would then automatically appear. So now if I hit republish, we're now starting to build this page out, this topic page, right? So dynamically, if I now go to here, and all I need to do now is manage this document library. So I can drag across another document. Now, if I choose and set the metadata of this document to policy and first day, what's going to automatically happen for me? So if I go policy, and I go onboarding stage of first day, what that will do is that will now automatically mean that on this page, and I'll just give this a refresh, I'll have 2 documents. So I've got 2 policies that have been marked as a policy, and with the first day and automatically there, I've got those 2 policy documents for the new employee to read on their first day. Now let's continue on here. So rather than having maybe these stacked on top of each other and in big cards, we might want to visually display these in a different way. So the section properties, I'm going to split this into 2 columns. So you can see I've now got 2 columns, but I also want to change the display of how these documents are displayed. So I'm going to go back into my highlighted content web part. And I'm now going to say, choose the layout of compact. So you can see now that I've got these 2 documents that aren't in big cards, but they're in smaller cards like so. We can also see we can choose how many we want to show, and we can sort them by most recent as well. So over on the right-hand side, I'm going to add another instance of our highlighted content web part. All right, so I'm going to add another instance. If I go back to employee onboarding, we've got templates and we've got guides. All right, so I might combine this now. So I'm going to say templates and guides for your first day. Okay, so now, and again, this is up to you how you would like to present these. But what we're seeing here is we've got so many different options to the way that we and surface content. So again, I'm going to go this site. I'm going to go documents, but this time still going to go to, actually what we're going to do is we'll target that document library. So document library in this site, and then I am going to say column name, and the column name for onboarding stage is going to be equal to first day. And then we're going to add another filter, which is going to be column name, and we're going to go document type. And this time what we will do, and there's a space in there. So this time what we're going to do is we're going to say equals, let's have a look. It's templates. And then I'm going to add another filter. Same thing, column name. I'm going to scroll down to here. I'm going to go document, and I'm going to say document type is equal to guide. And now what we'll have is templates and guides for your first day, along with our policies to read for our first day. And again, if I just add content or templates or guides to that document library and tag them as first day and then either a template or a guide, then that will then also automatically and dynamically update the content that gets displayed in this web part here. So again, from a view point of view, we've got different views. So we can have a list, we can have a carousel, which puts them into like a slideshow. We've got a film strip as well, which again, if we were displaying more, we'll display them as cards, but then scrollable as well. So I'm just going to choose compact here again. I'm going to hit republish. And now, again, what we've got is now a dynamic first, starting to build out our topic page. I'm just going to pop this back into edit mode here. And again, because it's all white, what I might do with this section is I might just give this a little subtle background as well. So let's just change that to a little bit of a gray. And now we're kind of breaking up our page in here as well. So by using the highlighted content web part, multiple instances of our highlighted content web part, then that allows us to be able to create this single point of entry for each particular stage of our onboarding experience. We've got our first day URL here. All right. So what we can do again is use our dashboarding functionality, which we'll look at on our homepage to create our dashboard to direct people to the right pages as well. And now what we're going to do is we're going to build out our employee handbook. So we've got a massive, big employee handbook. What we might want to do is break that up into different sections. So have an employee not read the entire handbook on our first day, but just the different sections of that employee handbook. All right. So again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to my employee handbook library, which let's just give this a refresh. And I will choose my employee handbook. And what we're now going to do, so remembering we've got our onboarding stage. So I'm just going to grab a few documents and I'm going to look at the sections or treat these as sections of the employee handbook. So now they're not specifically one massive document. What we do now have is our sections. All right. So again, these can be different types. So you can see I've got Excel, I've got PowerPoint, I've got PDF, I've got Word, but I've got different stages. So what I can say now is I'm just going to pop this into edit mode. We'll pop a few different stages in here. So we'll go 2 for our first day. We'll go 1 for our first week. I'll exit grid view. And let's go, actually, what we might do, let's have 3 on our first day. All right. So I'll just jump into the information icon across on the right-hand side, and then I'll set my onboarding stage to first day. So what we've now got is first day. All right. So now if I jump back onto my my page, which I will go to site contents, and then just to show you, I've got site pages. Now inside of my site pages, I've got welcome to your first day. There's our landing page for the first day. Now under here, I'm just going to pop this into edit mode, and I'm going to change, or I'm going to add a section. It's going to be a single column section this time. All right, so we'll go single column, and then we're going to build and we're going to create and use our highlighted content web part. I'm going to go to the properties of this. This time I'm going to choose a document library on this site, but I'm going to choose the employee handbook library, like so. All right, so here I've got my documents in our employee handbook, but again, we only want to display from a particular stage because remembering we've got our first day. All right, so here we've got our content source. Under filter, I'm going to choose column name. I'm going to choose onboarding stage as our column that we want to target. And I'm going to say equals first day. And then I should have 3 documents here. The let's go employee handbook sections for day one. All right. And I will then republish this. And then we've now got policies for our first day. We've got templates and guides for our first day. And we've also now got the employee handbook sections for day one. We've got all of our intro section up the top here. We've got our what our day looks like on the right-hand side. We've got a key contact person as well there. And now we've got the basis and the framework built to be able to build out the other pages or the other landing pages for our entire employee onboarding process. All right. Now, the next lesson, we're going to use the quick links web part on the homepage to be able to then create a dynamic or a dashboard type of view as well to point to these pages to make that user experience just that much better. All right, now let's walk through the process of how we could potentially create a little dashboard experience for your users, directing them to the right pages using the quick links web part. So we can see I'm on the employee onboarding homepage, the one that we've been working in. I'm going to edit this page, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to add the quick links web part. Now, the quick links web part allows us to have different views or layouts of these links. Now, I'm going to choose the grid layout here because it gives us the ability to have a nice big image associated to this particular link. Now, I'm going to add a link, and I'm going to point this link to welcome to your first day, that page that we just developed, okay? So we can see, pretty boring at the moment. It's auto-selected an image, not great. So I'm going to upload my own custom image here. So I'm going to go upload, and I've got an image ready to go. There it is there, and I'll add this image. So we've now got a direct link, and we could build this out and add additional links if we wanted to for the other additional stages. So I'm going to give this web part a title, and I'm going to say onboarding stages. I'm going to edit the title of this link as well. So we can see here, I can say stage one, welcome to your first day. I might actually just pop a little emoji in here as well, and then I can do that as well. Just adds a little bit more personalization, and I'll hit republish. So now I've got this page, I've got this link. Imagine the different stages of your onboarding experience here as represented with images and links like this. I can click on that link now. That takes me to that dynamic page to tell that the new employee everything that they need to know, all the resources and the documents and everything they need to know to prepare for their first day. Now, I also wanted to touch on in this lesson the ability for the views of this document library to be used in dashboard scenarios too. So let's say, let's forget about the onboarding stage at the moment, all right? So what we might do is say, I want to filter by policies. Regardless of the stage, I want to look at just the policies, all right? So I can create a view. So you can see here, I've got a filtered view for policy. I'm just going to turn that off. So I'm going to create a new view, and I'm going to say all policies. So I'll call this all policies, and I'll create that filter again. So document type, filter by policy, and I'll hit apply. Then I'm going to save the current view as policies, all policies, and then they are regardless of the day. All right. Now we could go a little bit further and go group by onboarding stage. And then I've got first day, first month. All right. So we might leave it like that actually. So what we'll do is go save view as, and we'll hit save. And now we've got all the policies grouped by the stage. So if we're back onto our employee onboarding homepage, we could then, if we wanted to, add another instance of, I'm just going to remove this, remove these default web parts here. I'll leave the quick links one here because we're going to use that as well. So I'm going to say add a link, and I'm going to go to the view, and then I'm going to, every view that you create in a document library has its own unique URL. So here, I'm going to flick over to all policies. I'm going to grab the URL of this view. I'm then going to go back to my homepage, and I'm adding a new link here. I'm going to go from link. I'm going to paste in that URL, and I'm going to hit add. All right. So this time the quick link, I'm just going to say document views. All right, so I'll just call this document views so we know what we're looking at. We'll go document views, and what we're going to do here is I'm going to hit the properties of this particular link, and we're going to change this, and I'm going to say all policies. And this time I'm going to choose an icon. So I'm going to go library, I'm going to go change, and then what is going to appear for me is this icon picker. So I'm going to choose this, this icon right here. Once this is selected, I can then use that as the icon for this quick link. So we'll hit select. And now what's happened is I've got all policies, and I haven't to fix the spelling up, and I'll hit republish. So now I've got two instances of the quick links web part that's giving me two different types of dashboards, right? So I've got all the onboarding stages in a more bigger graphical type of scenario. And now I've got these document views, which is a little bit smaller. I'll click on all policies. That takes me to that grouped view of the policies in the document library there. So there we go. Using the quick links web part, multiple instances can create that great dashboard type of user experience. All right, so this lesson here is a bit of an extension or a bonus lesson for you, where I'm going to introduce the concept of content types. So up until now, what we've been doing is just using site columns to determine the document type, and also we've added our onboarding stage to a library, but we've just been adding columns. Now, when we're talking about content types, you can think of content types as reusable collections of metadata, settings, behaviors that define these specific categories of content. So it's essentially a template that can be applied to documents across multiple lists and libraries in SharePoint sites, or SharePoint site collections is a more common term. So if we think of what we've got in play now, you can think of this document type column as potentially being separate content types itself. And we're going to use, in this example, the policy, and we're going to turn that into a content type. So a policy generally has some information specific to that type of content. So it might have a policy owner, it might have a review date, and other bits of information, or even a policy category, for example. So rather than having those as site columns across this library that would then come across templates and guides and all of that sort of stuff, but it's really specific to policy, we can think of then creating what's called a content type to apply and have that as our policy. So that's what we're going to have a look at here. We're going to create a new document library, and we're going to use or create our policy content type. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to create my document library. All right, so go back to the home page, I'll go to document library, and I'll just create a blank document library here, and I'll call this policies, because we're going to store all of our policies in this library. Okay, so we'll create that there, and stock standard SharePoint library, we've got all of our default values here. Now, the next step is to create our content type. So I'm going to go into my settings. I'm going to go into site information. Now, I'll go into view all site settings here, and under our web designer galleries, we've got our site content types. Now, everything in SharePoint is a content type. So whether it's a list item, whether it's a document, or anything like that. So what we can see here is, if I search for document here, well, what we'll see here is that is the default content type. When you create a document library, that's the content type that is used if we don't have any custom content type. So everything inherits from that. So when we're creating our custom content type, we're actually going to be inheriting from that document parent and then creating a custom one. Now, what is generally good practice is to also have a generic or a base document content type for you as well. And then the policy content type then inherits from your company document content type. So it's kind of three levels. We've got document, we've got a base content type, and then we've got potentially a policy content type. So that's what the structure is we're going to create. And it's all hierarchical in nature. So when we add our columns, it's going to flow down that parent-child relationship. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to group by category here. And because what we will have is different categories of content types. So I'm going to create a base general content type. So let's call this employee onboarding document. We're on the employee onboarding site, so I'm going to call this employee onboarding document. Now, what we're going to do is similar to our site columns, I'm going to create a new directory, and I'll just call this, a new category. I'll call this onboarding, I'll just call it CTSs. Now, the parent content type here is going to be in the document category, and it's going to be document. So you can see here that we've got other items here or other things. We've got documents, we've got pages, and everything is, as I said, is a content type. So I'm going to choose document and I'm going to click create. Now I'm not going to add any columns or anything else to this. I'm going to leave it as is. So now what I'm going to do is, now that I've got that structure, I'm going to now create a content type called policy. I'm going to use an existing category, which is this one that we just created, but this time from our parent category, I'm going to choose our employee onboarding document. All right. And I'm now going to hit create. So here is where we would build out the metadata that is specific to our policy. So I'm going to, first of all, create a new site column, and I'll call this one policy category. And I'll use an existing column because, remembering in a previous lesson, we already created our columns, and I'm going to choose a choice column. And actually what we might do, let's change this to business function. All right, so we'll go business function and we'll create our functions. So we might have human resources because we might have policies that are from the human resources function. We might have IT, we might have finance, and we might have legal as well. All right, so we'll go finance and we'll go legal. All right, so business function, choice column, we're going to add that. Next up, I'm going to choose a policy owner. All right, so we'll create a policy owner. We'll use our existing category. This time I'm going to choose a person or group. I'm going to show profile pictures. I'm not going to select groups, and it's just going to be a person. All right, so I'm just going to leave that as default. So now we've got policy owner, business function, and the next one that I'm going to do is I might go for a review date. All right, so let's choose review date, and we'll add a date and time column here. So category, we'll go onboarding, column type, we'll go date and time, and we'll click save. So now we've got our policy content type. All right, what we need to do now to use this is add this content type to the library. So I'm going to go back to my policies library that I've just created, which is up the top here. And there's a couple of different ways we can do this. We can go add a column, we can scroll down, we can go add a content type, we can go next, and this is going to give us the content types that are available for us. And you can see I've got policy and I've got my employee onboarding document. So that's one way. The next way is if we go to our library settings, and I'll go to more library settings, we can see under advanced, I can allow management of content types on to yes. I'm going to scroll down the bottom and click OK. And then I can, from this section here, say add from existing content types. I can select my category and I can go policy, and I'm going to go OK. Now I'm only going to use policy in this library because it's only storing policies. Now, as we did before, I'm going to remove the default document content type. All right. So I'm going to delete this. And now I've only got the one policy content type attached to this library. But what that means is now when I come back to my library and I go new, you can see that I've got new policy. So I can go click and it's going to start a new document for me. All right. And then I can start to add whatever I need to add here. Let's use Copilot, shall we? So let's go, can you create a social media policy that aligns with the Victorian government guidelines. All right. So I'm going to create this policy. Copilot's going to help me. It's going to look, grab some guidelines for me and make sure we've got our social media policy. Here we go. It's generating that for me. And once that's done, obviously we want to fact check this. All right. So this is just the draft. It'll get us part the way there. We want to, obviously, because it's Gen AI, we want to make sure that we review that. I'm going to keep that. Looks good. I'm going to rename this. Let's go 2024 social media policy. Okay. We'll name that. Now what we'll do is we'll just go back to our policies library and then we can see that we've got our document there. But we want to add some columns. So I want to show or hide columns. I want to go business function, policy owner, review date, and I'm going to hit apply. So now let's just also, what we might do is just hide these columns. We'll go show or hide. We'll turn these off. And now we've got our view. All right. So now what I can do is go select this, go to the information, and I've got my associated metadata here. So I've got business function, it's HR, the policy owner can be, well, let's close this down first or else it's not going to set. Policy owner can be myself, and the review date, let's just choose a review date of the end of the year. So we'll review it the end of this year. So we'll go in December 31st, and we've now got all of that set. Now what we don't have is our little picture. So let's have a look at our column. So let's edit this picture. We'll go show profile picture and we'll hit save. Okay, so now we've got our profile picture. So now what we can do is create our policies, right? And we've got our content type, we've got the metadata that's grouped and associated to that content type, so that we're keeping everything in context of the policy. Now we could do the same thing. So as we know, with our documents, we've got these two extra site columns here, but we don't need this document type associated to a policy because it is the policy, right? The content type is the type of document, but we do want this onboarding stage. So remembering that the content types are hierarchical in nature, we've got a parent-child relationship. So I'm going to go back to our base content type that we created. Okay, so I'm just going to go category. I'm going to group by category and we'll go to onboarding. And I want to open up this employee onboarding document. So now what I can do is I can say add from existing, because we've already got a site column for this, remember? So I've got onboarding stage, and I'm going to flick this across here and I'm going to go okay. And now I've got from the employee onboarding document, I've got onboarding stage. Okay. Now, the other thing that we could do is add the document type to this as well. And then that would create a base content type with those two columns on it. We could then use that document content type in any library. All right. So I'll do that. I won't do that for this at the moment. But what we'll do is let's now have a look and see what that has done to our policy document, our policy content type. So I'm going to go into here. I'm going to go to policy. And now what we'll have is we've got onboarding stage here. The source is coming from the employee onboarding document, flowing down the tree here. So what we can now do is if I go to our policies and I go to show or hide column, what we'll have is onboarding stage there now as well. All right, so I can select this And that onboarding stage, because it is flowed down to this content type, I can now also set that onboarding stage like so. All right, so there is what we might do is just edit this column. We'll go first day. Let's just choose orange for that. We'll hit save. All right. So the power of content types, and it's a really good concept to understand, extremely beneficial for your information architecture. Now, if I go back to the documents, what this could be in an ideal world potentially is that we have our employee onboarding document as our content type, and we've got these two columns here as site columns that have been added to that content type. So when I jump up here and go new employee onboarding document, we would have these two columns already associated to that particular content type itself. Now, from a global search perspective, it also then becomes extremely handy because what we could also do to take this even further is have a template document content type, a guide document type, each with its own set of metadata. So when I go new guide, I would have a different set of columns as opposed to that of a policy, and different again to that of a template. All right. So I hope that concept makes sense, and you can see the benefits and the power of utilizing content types to extend that information architecture and really enhance your information management.